Mocked, betrayed, and exiled, the daughter branded forever as the widow's curse. Grief is supposed to bind a family together, but in this story, grief was sharpened into a knife, and it cut not the guilty, but the innocent. When a mother lost her husband to the hunt, the fire of the tribe dimmed with mourning. At her side was her daughter, a girl who brought water, carried herbs, and whispered comfort through the night. Yet every kindness was twisted by envy. Every act of care was poisoned by whispers. It was her aunt who first said the words, "The girl is the widow's curse. Her presence drains the mother's strength." At first, the tribe muttered uneasily, but when the widow's cough deepened, they believed. When her steps faltered, they pointed. And when her breath grew shallow, they mocked the daughter, as if she herself had stolen her mother's life. Children spat the words curse-bearer. Women turned their backs. Even the elders, eager for someone to blame, ordered the girl to sleep outside the circle of fire. She watched her mother fade while the tribe laughed at her pain. But envy burns longer than grief, and betrayal cuts deeper than death. The girl carried no curse, only love. And when the truth of her aunt's deceit was revealed, the tribe learned that the cruelest poison is not shadow or omen, but lies spoken by those who hunger for power. The hunters returned at dusk with silence heavy on their backs. Among them, one spear was missing its owner. Blood stained the shaft, but no man carried it. A woman's cry split the camp. It was Lyra, whose husband had led the hunt. She tore at her hair and fell to her knees as the truth struck her. Her daughter Sani rushed forward. Thin arms wrapped around her mother, but grief is a storm too vast for a child to hold back. Lyra's sobs shook the earth itself. The tribe gathered in a circle of whispers. Men spoke of bad omens, women glanced at the fire, children huddled close, eyes wide. Death never came alone. Among them stood Marra, Lyra's sister. Her face was a mask of sorrow, but her eyes glittered like wet stones. She bent to Lyra, whispering words that bled into the air. "It was too much love that bound him," Marra murmured. "The widow carries sorrow, and her daughter carries the curse." The whispers took shape before the fire. Some shook their heads, but others nodded. Fear always wants a face, and Marra had given them one. That night, Lyra lay still, her body hollowed by grief. Sani fed her sips of water, laid herbs by her bed, and prayed for her mother's strength to return. But in the dark, voices hissed outside the hut. The girl's shadow drains her. The child is the widow's curse. At dawn, Sani carried water jars to her mother. The weight cut into her shoulders, but she smiled, proud to help. When she entered the hut, Marra was already there. She leaned close to Lyra, brushing damp cloth across her brow. Her eyes slid to Sani like blades. "The girl brings heaviness," Marra said softly. "Even the jars she carries taste bitter. Let her not linger too long." Lyra stirred weakly, caught between grief and trust. Her hand twitched toward Sani, then fell to her side. Outside, women waited. When Sani emerged, they turned their backs, muttering about shadows that poison the sick. Children played near the fire. As Sani passed, one threw a stick across her path. "Step over it, curse-bearer," he jeered. The others laughed. Sani's face burned, but she did not cry. She bent, picked up the stick, and laid it on the fire, letting smoke swallow their laughter. That night, her mother's cough worsened. Each rasping breath sounded like blame. Marra fanned the flames of suspicion, telling the tribe the girl's presence deepened the sickness. By the third night, Sani was ordered to sleep beyond the circle. Her mat was dragged to the cold edge of camp, where firelight barely touched. She curled into herself, clutching her braid. From across the flames, she heard children whisper the new name the tribe had given her, the widow's curse. The tribe gathered for the morning rite. Torches ringed the fire, smoke curling into the night like prayers. Sani stepped forward, holding a braid of woven grass. She had made it for her mother, a simple token of love. Marra's hand shot out, stopping her. "Do not bring your curse to the flames," she hissed. "The dead will not rest if you touch the offering." Gasps rippled through the circle. Elders frowned, but no one spoke. Fear was louder than truth. Sani lowered her eyes, retreating. Children laughed behind their hands, their giggles sharp as flint. Marra stepped into the fire's glow, holding the braid aloft. "This child wove it," she said sweetly, "but as her mother's sister, I will carry it. The dead must not be shamed." Applause broke like rain. The tribe praised Marra's wisdom, showering her with nods and murmurs of respect. Sani's heart twisted. Her gift, her love, had been stolen in plain sight, turned into her aunt's glory. Later, at the feast, Sani reached for a bowl. Ren, Marra's son, slapped her hand away. "The curse eats last," he said. The others laughed until stew spilled down their chins. Her stomach growled, but her throat ached worse. Every laugh was a blade, every glance a chain. She sat in the shadows, watching her mother cough. The fire was warm, but shame froze her bones. Days bled into nights, and each brought sharper scorn. Sani's footsteps drew whispers. Her shadow cast across the fire made women clutch their children closer. When her mother coughed blood into the earth, Marra raised her voice. "Do you see? The girl drains her. She carries death in her breath." The words struck deeper than spears. Some nodded, eager to believe. Others looked away, ashamed of their silence. At the water jars, Sani bent to drink. Ren shoved her shoulder hard. The cup tipped, spilling across the dust. "Even water flees from you," he jeered. Children roared with laughter, chanting, widow's curse," until her ears rang. Her hands trembled as she clutched the empty jar. For a moment she wanted to hurl it at them, to shatter the lie in clay and shards. But she swallowed the fire in her chest. If she burned too soon, only ashes would remain. That night she crept back to her mother's side. She pressed a damp cloth to her lips, whispered prayers, and braided a new cord from her own hair. Marra stood in the doorway, watching, her smile curved like a knife. "Even your hair carries sorrow," she murmured. "Tomorrow the tribe will see it for what it is." Sani froze, braid clutched in her hands. She knew the storm was coming, and she knew her aunt would hold the thunder. The tribe gathered at the shrine of stones. The air was heavy with smoke, the sky swollen with storm clouds. Sani clutched her braid of hair. It was her last gift for her mother, woven with tears and sleepless nights. Marra stepped forward before her. She raised her hands high. "The widow's child brings omens of death," she cried. "See the cord she holds, a curse knotted strand by strand." Gasps filled the circle. Faces turned, eyes narrowing. Fear spread like fire, leaping from one hut to the next. Sani's knees shook, but her voice cracked out. "It is mine. I wove it for her with my own hair, my own hands. It is love, not curse." Marra snatched the cord from her grasp. She flung it into the fire. Flames swallowed it in seconds, smoke curling black. "There!" Marra shouted. "Even fire spits her sorrow. Shall we keep a child who poisons her mother's last breath?" The crowd roared with agreement. Men pounded their staffs, women muttered prayers, children stared with wide and fearful eyes. Sani's heart broke with the smoke. Her gift was gone, her voice drowned, her love twisted into proof of evil. The chief lifted his hand. "Take her mat beyond the circle. From this night she sleeps with the dust. Let the fire burn free of her shadow." They dragged her mat to the edge of camp. The fire's glow barely touched her, and the night wind bit like teeth. Children followed, tossing pebbles into the dark. "Sleep well, widow's curse," they jeered. Their laughter carried longer than the flames. Sani curled into herself, clutching her knees. Her mother's cough echoed faintly from the huts, each sound slicing deeper than the cold. At dawn, she crept back toward the fire, but hands shoved her away, voices rising. "Stay in the dust. Your shadow has no place here." She ate scraps thrown like to a dog, a bone with no meat, a crust of burnt grain. Each bite tasted of shame. Her mother grew weaker, but Marra barred the doorway, saying, "Your touch will hasten her death. Leave her peace if you love her." Sani's fists bled from clenching, but she obeyed. Each night she lay under the stars, whispering prayers her mother would never hear. On the 7th morning, a wail cut through the camp. Lyra's breath had ended in the night. Sani staggered to her feet, but strong arms held her back. Marra's voice carried above the crowd. "The widow is gone. The curse remains. Drive it out before it poisons us all." The people cheered as if freed. Their grief turned not to mourning but to fury aimed at a child already broken. The funeral fire burned high. Smoke curled into the gray sky as ashes drifted on the wind. Sani stood at the edge of the crowd. She reached out, but hands shoved her back. Her place was no longer with the living. Marra stepped into the circle, draped in a mantle of woven furs. Her voice rang out, "I stood by my sister until her last breath. I carried her burdens when others failed." The tribe bowed their heads, murmuring respect. Every word carved Sani smaller until she was no more than a shadow in the dust. She tried to speak. "I was with her, But her voice cracked, drowned by chants of Marra the Keeper. Children mocked her, trembling. They pulled at their cloaks, coughing fake coughs, pointing at her as if her presence brought the sickness. Ren shoved past her with a smirk. "Go back to your place in the dirt, curse-bearer," he sneered, tossing a handful of ash into her hair. Sani's eyes burned, but no tears fell. She had none left. Only silence and rage kept her standing. That night, she lay outside the camp. The fire roared in the center, but its warmth never reached her. She pressed her mother's broken comb against her chest, the last thing Marra had not stolen. Above, the stars watched in silence. Even the sky seemed to hold its breath for what would come next. On the 3rd night after the funeral, the healer searched Marra's hut. He had noticed herbs missing from his store and sickness spreading where it should have eased. Beneath a basket, he found wilted leaves dusted with black powder. His eyes narrowed. These were not healing herbs. They were the kind that weaken breath. The healer said nothing, but word travels like smoke. By dawn, whispers clung to the camp like fog. "Marra's hands are not clean," Sani overheard from her place in the dust. Hope flickered, fragile as a spark in rain. Could the truth finally rise? That evening, the chief called the circle. His voice was heavy. "We mourn still, but we must also judge. Lies or curses cannot walk among us." Marra stepped forward, smiling. Her fur mantle gleamed, her chin high. "Yes, Judge, let us cast the curse out once and for all." The healer lifted the basket of herbs. "They were found in your hut," he said, "not in the girl's hands. Speak, Marra. Why do you keep poison in the shadows of your fire?" The crowd gasped as one. Eyes turned from Sani to Marra, faces pale, uncertain. For the first time, Marra's smile cracked. She spread her hands, words faltering. I kept them for protection, to guard against spirits." But no one bowed their heads this time. Silence pressed heavier than any chant. The lie hung bare in the firelight. Ren leapt to his mother's side. "Do not listen," he shouted. "The girl planted them. She seeks revenge." But the healer's voice cut sharper. "Revenge cannot rot leaves in a hidden basket. This poison has lived here longer than her exile." The crowd murmured, restless. Mothers pulled children close, fathers frowned, hunters exchanged wary glances. The spell of certainty was breaking. Sani stepped into the circle. Her braid was messy, her clothes torn, but her eyes burned steady. "I carried no curse. It was her envy that sickened my mother." Marra lunged forward, face twisted. "Lies. You were always the widow's shadow, stealing her strength. I only tried to save her from you." The chief lifted his staff. His voice thundered. "Enough! The herbs speak. The truth is plain." Marra's fury collapsed into desperation. She fell to her knees, clawing at the dirt. "She was my sister. I only wanted her place. Forgive me." But no one moved to lift her. The tribe's silence was colder than exile, heavier than chains. Sani held her mother's comb high. "She died with my name on her lips. Not curse, not omen, daughter." The crowd lowered their heads, shame burning hotter than the fire. For the first time, their scorn was not aimed at her, but at themselves. The chief spoke with finality. "From this night, Marra is cast beyond the fire. Her lies broke the circle, and her envy poisoned blood. 2 hunters dragged her toward the shadows. She clawed the dirt, screaming, but no hand reached to save her. Her mantle of fur tore in the dust. Ren shouted, struggling to follow. But the elders seized him too. "The branch bends where the root is rotten," they said. He was sent with her into the cold. The tribe turned back to Sani. No one mocked her now, faces bent low, heavy with shame. Children who once jeered hid behind their mothers. The chief lifted Sani's hand. "This is not curse," he said, voice steady. "This is daughter, and tonight we call her keeper of the widow's flame." The people murmured her name, not as insult but as honor. Sani stood tall, though her heart ached with all she had lost. She placed her mother's comb on the shrine. "I carried no curse," she whispered. "Only love, only truth." The fire flared, sparks rising high into the night. It was as if the flames themselves answered, burning not with fear, but with release. And so the tribe learned a bitter truth. The cruelest curses are not born of shadows or omens, but from envy whispered into willing ears.